at the beginning of the week with Stephen A. Smith on the 7 p.m. in Brooklyn show, talking about the fact that he just didn't like LeBron. He didn't like his ass, is exactly what he said.
A storm brews in the NBA, and even the biggest star cannot escape its shadow. Stephen A. Smith has put LeBron James at the center of whispers, questioning his proximity to a sprawling gambling scandal. In this video, we will explore why LeBron's name lingers in the conversation and how it might change everything. Frayed ties, Stephen A. and LeBron's deepening feud. The public relationship between Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James has long been tense, but now it has sharpened into a direct confrontation. The spark began when Smith criticized LeBron's son, Bronny James, which led LeBron to publicly rebuke Smith for crossing a line. The backlash escalated when Smith revealed the altercation stemmed from more than sports commentary. It touched on race, media access, and the limits of criticism.
That, some of the things he's saying, some of the ways he's moving. I mean, when I watched the LeBron thing play out last year, it felt like a moment where I was like, I wanted Stephen A. to take the high road.
In that climate, speculation about LeBron and the ongoing gambling scandal entered the mix, not because of official charges, but because Smith and others floated questions about insider data leaks allegedly tied to players and LeBron's proximity to one of the accused. A news report referenced that a co-conspirator in the investigation handled non-public information about the Los Angeles Lakers star, though LeBron was not charged. For James, the feud added another dimension to his off-court story. He is not just battling age and legacy, he now faces scrutiny on media, culture, and speculation fronts. For Smith, it is a chance to question not just player behavior, but the boundaries of commentary and accountability. The result, a story where personal animosity meets broader crisis. As the gambling scandal widens around the NBA, this feud may seem tangential, but it matters. Because when Stephen A. turns the lens on LeBron, the stakes are both personal and professional, and the questions go beyond who did what. Speculation ignites. LeBron and the gambling web rumors swirl faster than bullets in the aftermath of the NBA's gambling scandal. And when LeBron James's name enters those whispers, the storm finds a focal point. Although no credible accusation has formally named him in the federal probe, his proximity to the accused and his high-profile status have made him a magnet for speculation. What began online as idle chatter has morphed into televised commentary and internet deep dives.
And I get this, the ego thing again. Look like LeBron chumped you in front of...
You sitting in my seat.
You're right, exactly. I get it. But at some point you got to make a decision about how you're going to move.
At the heart of this gradient of suspicion is Stephen A. Smith. Known for his bold takes and reluctant diplomacy, Smith has publicly questioned why the superstar seems untouched, while wider investigations implicate scores of players. On media platforms, he suggested the timing of arrests and the names that surface raise questions about access, influence, and the thresholds of accountability. Behind those questions lies a series of coincidences that fuel speculation. For example, media referrals to a data firm seizure list described multiple teams, including the Lakers, as clients of analytics firms now under federal review, a detail viewed by many as pointing toward James's organization. While no official link to him appears in court records, the suggestion of indirect association keeps the rumors alive. Meanwhile, within the NBA self-governance structure, executives are quietly uneasy. A star under even tangential suspicion threatens the league's brand in a way no mid-level player ever could. For internal risk teams, the mere possibility of James's name in investigative documents triggers scenario planning that no other single figure commands. James himself remains off-camera on this issue. No statement has directly addressed the gambling investigation. His silence, interpreted by some as strategic, by others as evasive, only deepens the narrative feeds. In the court of public discourse, perception now precedes proof. In the end, the speculation isn't about indictment, it's about influence and optics. And when one player dominates the sport like LeBron does, being part of a story is almost inevitable. The next chapter will dig into exactly what Smith said, when he said it, and why it matters. Stephen A.'s public call-out, what he said. When the spotlight turned to the gambling scandal engulfing the NBA, Stephen A. Smith shifted from commentator to accuser, targeting LeBron James in a series of public statements that fused personal animus with investigative intrigue. On his podcast and talk show appearances, Smith challenged why James's name had not surfaced in any official investigations, hinting at deeper ties and unresolved questions, even though no formal charge exists.
Say he wants to have a conversation in public, like approaching him in public in front of the cameras. He's saying that it's a conspiracy, that he was set up. And I'm listening to this man and I'm like, I agree with Mark. I would hope that he take the high road.
Smith's critique came at a moment when the FBI revealed sweeping indictments, sealed files, and ties between players and organized crime-backed gambling operations. Rather than rely purely on legal documents, Smith raised the possibility that the biggest star in the league might be operating in a zone of influence that escapes typical scrutiny. His words sent shockwaves through the NBA ecosystem, not only because they named LeBron, but because they exposed the game's prestige as vulnerable to questions of access, data, and power. In his address, Smith didn't claim direct evidence against James, but he framed the scenario this way. When the system is compromised, even the untouchables become part of the narrative. By linking James to patterns of insider betting and data exploitation, though softly, indirectly, he positioned the superstar as both a former symbol of the league's success and a potential weak point in its defense. This strategic ambiguity served two purposes. It stirred speculation and demanded clarity. The public reaction was immediate. Media outlets dissected Smith's remarks, social media threads erupted, and even league offices noticed. LeBron, typically insulated by status, found himself under a different kind of spotlight, one where commentary meets credibility and fame meets suspicion. Smith's message defined the next phase of the scandal, not just who is charged, but who is questioned. And when one person symbolizes an institution, the question becomes bigger than any individual. LeBron's response: silence or strategy? As the speculation around LeBron James's name gained traction in the unfolding NBA gambling scandal, the former MVP's response, or more precisely, his silence, became a major talking point. While media outlets circulated stories linking his injury status to tipped-off wagers, and commentary from analysts like Stephen A. Smith amplified the narrative, LeBron maintained a measured public posture. Statements were sparse, social media activity routine, but no direct address of the allegations.
You know, I kind of agreed, like, when he said that, LeBron, you put me in a position you don't want us to, on one hand, you want us to respect your son, that's your son, but if he plays and he comes in, you're also telling us not to do our job. So I kind of agreed with him on there, but
Reports suggest the namesake connection stems from court filings in which accused insider Damon Jones allegedly shared confidential health status information about James ahead of a February 2023 Lakers-Bucks game. According to multiple outlets, the following day the Lakers lost 115-106. LeBron had been listed as probable with ankle soreness, yet the tip preceded any official disclosure. Still, the filings indicate that James was not charged, nor formally accused of wrongdoing. His name appears only as a player whose status was referenced in the leak, the role of which remains indirect and under review. Within the Lakers organization, internal briefings reportedly took place in the wake of the story. According to media reports, coach J.J. Redick and front office staff convened meetings emphasizing the league's anti-gambling protocols and reminding players how behavior, even without direct involvement, can trigger scrutiny. LeBron, for his part, appeared to lean into his off-court business narrative. A recent podcast noted his cautious financial stance and avoidance of risk in his ventures, leading commentators to interpret his silence in the scandal as a continuation of his public strategy of control and minimal exposure. In the court of public opinion, though, silence can speak volumes. LeBron's lack of direct reply has been read either as confidence in his innocence or as distancing from a storm he fears might engulf his legacy. For analysts like Stephen A., the absence of denial becomes part of the critique, suggesting that when the system is compromised, even heroes become symbols of vulnerability. The next chapter will broaden the lens and examine how commentary, media, and cultural forces amplify this framing. Outside the court, media, analysts, and the narrative. When Stephen A. Smith turned his attention toward LeBron James in the context of the NBA gambling scandal, the dialogue moved from locker room whispers to national-scale commentary. Smith's public commentary shifted the narrative. This wasn't just about the players formally charged. Now it was about the league's biggest star, his influence, and his place in the unfolding story.
it was ego. He wanted approval from LeBron, wanting acknowledgement from LeBron to me. And I felt like sometimes two people, you're not going to mesh with everyone.
Smith has not alleged formal involvement by LeBron in the scandal's federal probe, but he has repeatedly asked why LeBron's name hasn't been cleared publicly and why questions haven't been asked about possible data leaks, injuries, or bets where insider information may have been used. In effect, Smith reframed the story, not as one of guilt proven, but of suspicion sustained. In the court of public opinion, that framing matters. Media outlets seized on Smith's comments, running segments that probed the credibility of massive betting partnerships and the integrity of star athletes. Analysts discussed the implications of a superstar being subject to speculation, even without formal charges. For the NBA brand, the damage wasn't just about what was proven, it was about what was perceived. Beyond talk shows, the incident exposed deeply sensitive partnerships between broadcasters, betting platforms, and the league itself. Smith's critique wasn't simply personal. It reflected a broader concern that the relationships connecting data, money, and fame could compromise the very trust that keeps the game irreplaceable. LeBron's silence, meanwhile, amplified the media angle. No formal denial, no major statement, just the athlete continuing his career as usual, while a swirling narrative played out in the background. Smith's commentary transformed the story into a duel of spotlight and subtext, the athlete on one side, the analyst on the other. Ultimately, this chapter isn't about confirmed evidence, it's about cultural positioning. When the league's greatest player becomes part of the conversation, even skeptically, the game's big picture shifts. As media and analysts weigh in, the battle isn't just about who is indicted, it's about who remains untouchable, and whether that status still holds meaning. Locker room fallout, players on edge. Inside the league's locker rooms, the mood has shifted dramatically. What was once routine, pre-game focus, strategy sessions, warm-up jokes, has become tension, suspicion, and uncertainty. Players across the NBA are now grappling with the fallout from high-profile arrests and the sweeping gambling investigation that has revealed insider leaks, organized crime ties, and shattered trust.
So for him to then buy a ticket to the game and sit in such close proximity to LeBron for so long and think that he's not going to say anything and then blame the camera angles for what the situation looked like seems crazy to me, because LeBron James works at that arena.
The shockwaves began when coaches and staff publicly acknowledged the gravity of the situation. Miami Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra described the arrest of guard Terry Rozier as a shocking day for professional basketball. League-wide, players admitted they were no longer just competing against opponents. They were competing with suspicion, surveillance, and the weight of possibility. For many athletes, the concern isn't just direct involvement, it's collateral damage. Contracts, endorsements, and fan perception now hang on behavior and image more than performance alone. Veterans like Shaquille O'Neal expressed shame that the very game they helped elevate could be tainted by exploitation and betrayal. Younger players are caught between silence and over-explanation, unsure whether staying quiet equals innocence or guilt in the public eye. Social media speculation, media segments, and betting commentators all add pressure, turning everyday actions into scrutinized moments. Within teams, internal decisions are shifting. Players are warned that their communications, their rest days, their injury disclosures, even their locker room banter could become part of investigations. Agents and advisors advise caution. Players seek clarity on what triggers inquiry and what simply raises eyebrows. The game of trust has changed. What once bonded a team now binds them in risk. The specter of what could happen haunts many players. A link to betting networks, a leaked statistic, a sudden lineup change. In a league built on speed, agility, and performance, the missing piece now may be transparency and conduct. The scoreboard still matters, but increasingly, it's also about whether what happens away from the court can withstand scrutiny. Media blitz and sponsorship breakdowns. The moment the investigations broke, the world outside the arenas ignited. Media outlets shifted focus instantly from on-court highlights to off-court scandals. When reporting revealed that the NBA had tilted towards sports betting culture, even suggesting that it had invited gambling into its programming, brands and broadcasters were forced into reactive mode.
My stance on Stephen A. Smith and the LeBron situation is that Stephen A. Smith is very dramatic. He is
Sponsors that once proudly displayed players in campaigns now pondered risk. Betting app deals, marquee endorsements, international licensing contracts all came under new scrutiny. A key issue, the league's heavy integration with gambling media meant that marketing and league narrative became intertwined, and that collapse of integrity carried serious financial risk. Broadcast networks faced an existential dilemma. On one hand, they had built partnerships with sportsbooks and promoted prop bets during games. On the other, a scandal implicating players and coaches in gambling operations undermined the legitimacy of what they were selling. The industry conversation turned inward, with executives questioning whether their content had become complicit in the problem. The ripple effect extended globally. With betting overlays, odds graphics, and live bet prompts now part of game day presentation, the league's product looked less like sport and more like a wagering feed. Opinion writers argued that this convergence of sports and gambling had created the conditions for exploitation, and now the backlash had begun. Behind the branded ads and television graphics, the question became, what happens when the product itself is compromised? Fans began asking whether outcomes were real or driven by money. Advertisers realized their athlete spokespeople may now represent risk instead of performance. The once unshakable empire of league marketing and sponsorship found itself vulnerable not because of one scandal, but because of a system built on the wagering narrative. In the era of this scandal, the game of sponsorship is no longer about visibility, it's about verification. The next chapter will look at how the players' union and the league framed their joint response to this new commercial reality. The players' union pushes back. As the gambling scandal engulfed the NBA, the focus shifted from individual misconduct to collective rights. The National Basketball Players Association, NBPA, stepped into the arena, not just as an advocate for players, but as a core stakeholder demanding procedural fairness, transparency, and structural protection for all members.
You know what I mean? And LeBron is probably one of the people that feel like, nigga, I don't have to be cool with you because everybody else is cool with you. I don't fuck with you like that.
The union's concerns became public when it challenged the league's decision to place Terry Rozier on administrative leave without pay, following his involvement in a federal gambling probe. The NBPA appealed, arguing that withholding salary before formal adjudication violates the presumption of innocence and may conflict with the collective bargaining agreement, CBA. Beyond discipline and pay, the NBPA also directed attention to the broader systemic risks players face. Earlier this year, the league and union had jointly advocated for tighter limits on prop bets to protect players from manipulation and harassment. In the wake of the current scandal, the union reiterated that any reform of betting markets must include safeguards on player data, injury disclosures, and internal communications. Inside league offices, this blew open a new front. Teams and executives could no longer treat player discipline as purely internal. They now face potential grievances, arbitration proceedings, and scrutiny from the union. Lessons from the NBPA's pushback reveal the stakes. Fairness isn't just moral, it's legal, and it affects contracts, endorsements, and player careers. For players, from stars to bench warmers, the message was clear. Even those untouched by the investigation face risk. Association with implicated figures, or even missteps with outside data access, can trigger union interest. The union's stance elevated the scandal beyond criminal investigation. It became a labor rights issue. As the NBPA raised its voice, the league's next moves require alignment. Not just policy announcements, but partnerships with the players. The union's position, reform without protection, isn't reform at all. In this crisis, collective voice may matter as much as individual responsibility. A global reputation at risk. The latest gambling scandal within the NBA isn't just a national story. It has gone international, putting the league's global brand under intense scrutiny. What began with arrests and internal probes in the US now threatens to unsettle partnerships, broadcasts, and loyal fan bases around the world.
I think that both of them are at the peak of their respective fields, right? No question. I think that
in markets such as China, Europe, and the Middle East, where the NBA has spent years building growth and influence, the crisis lands at the worst possible time. The league returned to China for 2 preseason games in Macau after a 6-year absence linked to political fallout. The timing couldn't have been worse. While the NBA aimed to rebuild its image there, the gambling investigation reminded overseas audiences that the league's internal governance may be fragile. Merchandising, broadcast rights, and licensing contracts across regions now face reassessment. In some international markets, partners are asking hard questions. Can we still align with a league under criminal investigation? Retailers that once sold NBA jerseys and memorabilia now worry whether the product retains its legitimacy. The bond between brand and authenticity is under pressure. For fans in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, the perception of the NBA matters deeply. Many view the league as a standard of fairness and global competition. That image is now shakier. Media outlets abroad are highlighting the scandal as evidence that big league basketball is vulnerable to corruption and influence. That shifts the narrative from elite sport to enterprise under risk. Even policymakers in countries watching sports betting legislation are paying attention. The NBA's credibility in markets with emerging regulation depends on a clear message of control and integrity. A scandal of this magnitude sends ripple effects beyond value deals. It influences how global audiences see the sport and how emerging markets will invest in it. The stakes: rebuild or reconsider. If the NBA loses trust in one region, it risks losing access to billions in revenue and millions of new fans. And when a league's strength lies in its worldwide influence, reputational damage in any market becomes a cost to all. Legacy at the brink. The NBA's pivotal hour. Now more than ever, the NBA stands at a crossroads. The torrent of indictments, sealed files, and ties to organized crime gambling rings has stripped away any illusion that the system was fully under control. Careers hang in the balance, reputations are on the line, and the league's greatest asset, integrity, is under siege. In response, the NBA sent a league-wide memo to all 30 franchises outlining sweeping reforms, stricter injury reporting standards, expanded education on gambling risks, and advanced monitoring tools including AI to flag abnormal wagering activity. While policy shifts alone cannot restore bruised trust, they mark a turning point. For fans, each substitution or early exit now carries suspicion. For sponsors, each endorsement deal now asks, can we still trust this product? Commercial stakes have never been higher. The league's multi-billion-dollar growth model, built on global expansion, sponsorships, and betting partnerships, is now under threat. Analysts argue the NBA's embrace of sports gambling may have created a vulnerability as severe as it was lucrative. Under Commissioner Adam Silver, this moment is no longer merely about discipline, it's about governance, culture, and legacy. The coming seasons carry weight far beyond wins and losses. Every game, loading ticker, and broadcast won't just reflect performance, it will reflect the league's ability to rebuild belief. If the NBA fails to deliver measurable and visible change, this moment may define its identity rather than pass as a regrettable episode. Yet, if it succeeds, enforcing action, reforming systems, and restoring loyalty, it could emerge stronger than before. One truth remains: this is the final warning. Integrity is no longer optional. The scoreboard still ticks. But what's at stake now is whether basketball remains something fans believe in or simply something they bet on. The NBA's gambling scandal has exposed vulnerabilities that reach far beyond the court. From federal indictments to reputational risk, the league faces a defining moment in its history. How it responds, through reform, accountability, and restoring trust, will shape the future of basketball, its players, and the fans who live for the game.